whispers of desire. A suburban neighborhood where cozy houses line the street, separated only by a shared fence overgrown with ivy. Samantha, a married woman in her early 30s, feeling disconnected from her husband. She is vibrant and passionate but trapped in the monotony of her everyday life. Samantha used to embrace her creativity through painting, but those moments have dwindled since her marriage. Jake, a charming and adventurous single man. Recently moving into the neighborhood, he brings an air of excitement and mystery. He is an aspiring photographer, always looking for new muses and inspiration. Samantha had never paid much attention to her neighbors, but everything changed when saw Jake next door. His was marked by laughter and the sound of classic rock music drifting through the open windows. She caught glimpses of him through the sheer curtains, often finding herself daydreaming about the easy confidence he exuded. The spark. One sunny afternoon while watering her garden, Samantha noticed Jake struggling to lift a heavy box onto his porch. Heart racing, she walked over to offer help. As she approached, she inhaled the scent of fresh paint and blooming flowers that surrounded him. "Hey there, need a hand?" she asked casually, trying to mask her excitement. "Would love one, actually," he replied, his voice oozing charm. As they worked side by side, their laughter filled the air, and Samantha felt an unexpected thrill rush through her with every casual touch, her fingers brushing against his arm, the warmth radiating between them. "Thanks for that," Jake said, finally setting the box down. "I think I owe you one. Maybe just a drink would suffice, to celebrate good neighborly relations?" Samantha suggested, a spark of daring igniting within her. Jake raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in his eyes. "Sure, I could use a break. How about later?" Building connection, that evening, they met for drinks on Jake's porch. With the sun setting and gold hues enveloping the street, the atmosphere felt electric. Conversation flowed freely, laughter erupting like fireworks as they shared stories about their lives. As the light faded, the shadows deepened around them, and the tension became undeniable. Jake leaned closer, his arm casually brushing against Samantha's shoulder. The warmth of his body sent shivers racing down her spine. In the middle of a conversation about their favorite movies, Jake suddenly held eye contact a beat longer, his gaze intense. "What if we turned this into a movie night? Just you and me," he suggested, his voice low, almost provocative. "I wouldn't mind that," Samantha replied, her pulse quickening. Then one balmy night, Jake asked Samantha to join him for a spontaneous rooftop stargazing session. They climbed the stairs and settled onto the roof, the cool breeze lightly brushing their skin. The city lights twinkled below, but Samantha was captivated by Jake's presence beside her. As they sat under the stars, Jake turned towards her, the moonlight highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw. "It's beautiful up here," he said softly. "It really is," Samantha replied, breathless. The air was thick with tension, she could feel the heat radiating between them. Jake leaned in closer, searching her eyes. "Do you ever find yourself wishing for something more?" he asked, his voice a rough whisper that stirred something deep within her. "Yes," Samantha breathed out, unable to hide the longing in her eyes. "I often feel trapped in my life." Jake's gaze dropped to her lips, and in that charged moment, their mouths collided, softly at first, then with an urgent fierceness. Samantha melted into him, feeling fireworks explode behind her closed eyes as their bodies pressed together. They pulled away, breathless, realizing what had just happened. "We shouldn't have done that," she murmured, shame and thrill mixing within her. "I know," Jake replied, his voice laced with desire. "But damn, it felt right." The next morning, Samantha awoke with a mix of exhilaration and dread. The kiss replayed in her mind, igniting a desire she could no longer ignore. The guilt of her actions gnawed at her, but she couldn't help but recall how alive she felt with Jake. Over breakfast, she pretended to listen as Mark discussed his plans, but her mind wandered to Jake's touch, the warmth of his lips, and the way he made her feel, desired and alive. That afternoon, while folding laundry, she caught herself staring at Jake's house. He was outside, working on his garden, his muscles rippling as he bent over. The sight sent a heat coursing through her veins. Samantha took a deep breath, unable to resist temptation. "Hey, Jake," she called out, her voice steady. He looked up, a grin breaking across his face. "Samantha. Making the most of this beautiful weather?" "Yeah, I was just wondering how you're doing," she asked, feeling her pulse quicken. "Better now that you're here," he said, leaning against the garden fence, his expression inviting. "Care to join for a drink? I have some new local brews." "Definitely," she replied, her excitement bubbling over as she stepped closer. Flirtations, the drinks led to laughter intertwined with flirtatious glances. The tension thickened as they edged toward dangerous territory, the space between them growing smaller. Jake poured more wine and leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. "You know," he began, "I never really believed in the idea of the one until I met someone who made me feel alive." Samantha's breath hitched. "And who would that be?" she asked teasingly. Jake caught her gaze. "Someone who's just as trapped in their life, who doesn't deserve to be." Before she could think, she leaned closer to him, their lips nearly touching again. This time, it wasn't just a kiss, it was raw, hungry, filled with pent-up desire. Their lips melded together as the kiss deepened, becoming more passionate. He pulled her closer, and she responded eagerly, her heart racing as they lost themselves in the moment. The moment of truth, panting, they finally broke apart, resting their foreheads against each other. "I shouldn't be doing this," Samantha whispered, feeling the weight of her choices hanging above her. "Neither should I, but it feels so good," Jake confessed, his breath hot against her skin. Samantha stepped back, her mind racing. "Jake, what are we doing?" "I'm not trying to push," he said, looking serious. "But I want you, Samantha. I can't pretend I don't." The fire inside her roared to life, and she could no longer resist the pull. "I want you too," she admitted, heart pounding. "But what does this mean?" A night of passion, with the thrill of the forbidden weighing heavily on them, Jake took her hand and led her inside. As the door closed behind them, the world outside faded away. They stood in the dim light of his living room, heartbeats echoing as they drew together again. Jake captured her face in his hands, kissing her hungrily. Samantha melted into him, opening herself to the sensations coursing through her. She wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling the heat radiating from his body and the firm grip of his hands on her waist. "I've wanted this for so long," he murmured between kisses, his breath warm and inviting. As they stumbled towards the couch, Jake's lips trailed down her neck, igniting a fire within her that she hadn't felt in years. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his voice thick with desire. "Please don't stop," she thought, but instead, she breathed, "Don't stop." Jake pushed her gently onto the couch, his fingers dancing over her skin, sending delightful shivers down her spine. The softness of the cushions cradled them as their bodies pressed together. It was a whirlwind of warmth and connection. Jake's hands explored her curves, each brush igniting an inferno of need that made her lose her breath. Samantha found herself entwined with him, every kiss filled with an urgency that sent shockwaves through her body. Exploration and connection, hours passed, and still, they explored each other, discovering new depths of desire and connection. As they lay intertwined on the couch, breathing heavily, Samantha realized that this was more than just physical, it was a reckoning of who they really were and what they felt. "Wow," Samantha breathed, laying her head against his chest as their fingers intertwined. "That was incredible." Jake chuckled softly, running his fingers through her hair. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this." Samantha looked up at him, the vulnerability in her eyes, contrasting the exhilaration of the night. "What are we doing? This can't just be a fling." "I don't want it to be," Jake replied, his expression serious. "There's something deeper here, something worth exploring." But doubts crept in, reminding her of the life waiting for her beyond the thrill of the moment. "I have a husband, Jake." "I know," he said softly. "But we have something special here. We can take it slowly, see where this leads." Samantha sensed his sincerity, and a part of her felt hope, something she thought was lost in her marriage. But she also felt the weight of her choices descending like a heavy fog. As the days turned into weeks, she found herself embracing her dual life. With Jake by her side, she reconnected with her love for painting, allowing her creativity to flourish. They explored each other in different ways, nestled together beneath the stars, adventuring through the neighboring towns, and sharing secrets late into the night. Samantha began to see glimmers of hope in her marriage too, as she sought to communicate more openly with Mark. She discovered renewed strength within herself, not just as a wife, but as a vibrant, passionate woman capable of pursuing her happiness. Though complicated, the journey with Jake stirred something deep within her, a reminder that life could be rich with flavor if she chose to savor it. And while she navigated the delicate dance of love and attraction, she knew she was finally embracing her true self, ready for whatever the future held.